With just over $38 billion spent on agriculture in 2022, the local agriculture sector is now being described as a sleeping giant that has been awakened and on the move in giant leaps. Since retaking the reins of government in August of 2020, the PPPC government has placed great emphasis on providing the resources to revive what was at one time a dying sector, one starved of the resources necessary to sustain its development. In that year's emergency budget, government allocated $19.7 billion, which allowed for emergency drainage and irrigation works across the country that saved the livelihoods of thousands of the nation's rice and cash crop farmers. In 2022, the agriculture budget was increased to $38 billion, including two parliamentary-approved supplementary sums for emergency interventions across the country. This amount represents an almost 100% increase over the 2020 emergency budget allocation for the sector, or 7% of the national allocations. Because of its activism in not only fueling the revitalization of the agriculture sector at home, but also in CARICOM through several initiatives, including the Vision 25 by 2025 strategy for reducing the region's food import bill in 3 years, Guyana received the endorsement of the member states of the Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean to host the 38th session of the Food and Agriculture Organization's FAO Regional Conference in 2024. As we reflect on the highlights of agriculture development over this past year, we begin with mention of a major event that jump-started regional collaboration and a coordinated effort to, as a region, ensure the realization of food and nutrition security and insulation against the impacts of global shocks, most of which began with the global pandemic and now worsened with the war between Russia and the Ukraine. That event was Guyana's hosting of the inaugural Regional Agri-Investment Forum and Expo, which was held May 19 to 21. The event provided an opportunity for agribusinesses and organizations to participate and network with potential investors in business-to-business engagements and to match bankable and shovel-ready business proposals with concrete investment in the regional agriculture sector and the agri-food systems. It's out of this conference that several collaborations between Guyana and CARICOM countries were realized. Through collaboration with the government of Barbados, work has commenced for the construction of the Guyana-Barbados Food Terminal, which will address the many hurdles of transportation and logistics in the region. Once established, the facility will also help in the movement of products and reduce the cost of those produce, at the same time providing access to new markets. Here at home, the government of Guyana continued to demonstrate its commitment to the agriculture sector through increased financial support for farmers in times of distress. This was reflected in the sums provided for rice, livestock, and cash crop farmers across the country, all of whom received more than $109 million in flood relief grants. Rice and cash crop farmers were also assisted with the rising cost of fertilizer and other inputs through the provision of $1 billion worth of fertilizer to all affected farmers. For the fisherfolk, some 7,500 persons received cash grants of $150,000 each, totaling $1.1 billion. These interventions by government over the past year have ensured that the nation's farmers are able to survive the major challenges they have and continue to face at the hands of climate change and now rising cost of inputs. So how have the policies of the PPPC government impacted the productivity of the local agriculture sector over the last year? The answers are clearly evident in the performance of the various subsectors. We begin with a look at the performance of the Guyana Sugar Corporation, GAISUCO. As of September 30, 2022, nearly 1,500 persons were employed at GAISUCO at the soon-to-be-reopened Rose Hall, Enmore, and Skeldon estates, and includes just over 1,000 of the severed employees. Mechanization of the factories was significantly advanced and is progressing rapidly. At Blairmont Estate, the first phase of expansion of the packaging plant is significantly advanced. Across in rice, the sector has performed creditably despite the major challenges posed by the unfavorable weather conditions and rising input costs. For 2022, rice exports amounted to approximately $185 million, with Lebanon being one of the newly acquired markets, buying more than 24 tons of packaged white rice from Guyana. As part of its continuing efforts to improve and modernize the local drainage and irrigation infrastructure across the country, the Ministry of Agriculture, through the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority (NDIA), facilitated the rehabilitation of sluices at Union, Legwan, Cane Grove, and other communities countrywide. Some $1.3 billion was expended on construction and rehabilitation of pump stations in Blackbush Polder and at Venture on the Quarantine, Canal Number 1, Versailles, Cottage, Greenwich Park, Andrews, and Cosia. Those works are ongoing. Dredging of the Pomeroon River mouth is ongoing following the procurement of 2 excavators and a pontoon. In Region 5, the Mahika-Mahikoni-Abari Agriculture Development Authority (MMA-ADA) continues to deliver a superior quality of service after being retooled by government with the provision of 2 new excavators and a tractor and the rehabilitation of the seed processing facility this year. Over the last year, the MMA completed 5 kilometers of all-weather road from Onvuak to Bel Air, maintained 730 miles of drainage and irrigation channels monthly, and distributed 128 land leases to farmers of the scheme. In the area of crop diversification, corn and soybean cultivation in 2022 amounted to 366 acres of corn and 495 acres of soybean sown and harvested. In addition, in fulfillment of its mandate of providing the necessary infrastructure to facilitate the efforts of the local conglomerate Takama Gold, growing corn and soybean in the Takama savannas in the upper reaches of the Berbice River, approximately 40 kilometers of road was completed by government. One of the initiatives by President Dr. Irfaan Ali for the involvement of youths who are graduates of the Guyana School of Agriculture and the University of Guyana is the Agriculture and Innovation Entrepreneurship Program, or AEIP. This project uses shade house technology for the production of high-value crops and is managed by graduates of the 2 institutions. To date, 120 shade houses have been constructed and are in full production. In addition to the niche vegetables such as broccoli and cauliflower, lettuce and carrots, the Shade House project now also includes the production of cut roses, another initiative of President Dr. Irfaan Ali, harvesting of which is currently ongoing. So far, just over 2,500 roses have been harvested and sold. Across in the coconut industry, the expansion which began in 2021 continues to bear fruit, with the export volume of coconut and coconut products for 2022 amounting to just under 7,500 metric tons. In addition, 2022 saw the continuation of the Coconut Seedling Nursery Diversification Program, with a total of 9 nurseries established around the country, making seedlings readily available to farmers. In an effort to boost local production of coconuts and coconut byproducts, the first batch of 2,000 Brazilian green dwarf seed nuts arrived in the country in October and are being prepared for introduction in local cultivations. Government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, has also focused its attention on the advancement of the lucrative spices industry here. Over the last few months of 2022, government approved $20 million to procure planting materials for the expansion of ginger cultivations, with 65 farmers already having crops in the ground. In addition, 30 farmers are cultivating the equivalent of 15 acres of turmeric and are anticipating yields of up to 210,000 pounds. Farmers also received help with the cuttings for the cultivation of black pepper and nutmeg. Trials are also well advanced in the cultivation of wheat, with Guyana aiming to mitigate against the rising cost of wheat and flour as a result of the war in the Ukraine. These trials are underway in regions 8 and 9. Commenting on the performance of the agriculture sector in 2022, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa described the year as one of consolidation and expansion, with government providing the resources aimed at spurring growth.
I want to say that 2022 was a very successful year for us in the agriculture sector. As a matter of fact, we have seen a number of increases in various sectors, in various areas. For example, other crops, we have seen massive increase. In the livestock sector, we have seen massive increase in various, for example, the swine production. That is a success story for us. In the small ruminants, we have seen new genetics we have bought from overseas to improve our genetic in Guyana. Besides that, we'll start ramp up artificial insemination, the AI program. We have already signed a contract with a Brazilian firm to start the transfer of embryo over 300 animals were already identified, and that process will commence in a month, less than a month. And in the aquaculture industry, we have seen massive improvement, hundreds of percent increases we have saw in that sector. We have started the cage culture that the president spoke about. We have already have 8 cages, and those cages are stocked with tambiki. And over the next few months, you will see that will ramp up to in the various hinterland area. So all in all, for me, I think 2022 was very successful. And the trend will continue in 2023. I think 2023 will be the year that we will have to ramp up more production in various areas, and 2023 will see more large increases in the various sectors, especially the crops. We have seen the diversification in terms of the corn and soya projects. We have seen the diversification in the high-value crops that the president launched, the young people, the youth entrepreneurial skill program in cauliflower, broccoli, and carrots. We have seen production. We have started the trial for wheat. We have seen the cutthroats project get started. And presently, we are producing 400. We are producing now. That will increase to 800 by the end of February. So in another year from now, I am very optimistic that we can satisfy the needs of Guyana in terms of roast production. I am hoping by 2025 we will be satisfy all the local consumption in terms of corn and soya to have the to produce our own proteins for the feed industry and also be a net exporter. So if I can summarize 2022 was a year where we have seen the transformation of the agriculture sector, and I think that 2023, 2024 and 2025 is where we will see better results in terms of moving forward and increased production. We have seen a massive infrastructural development in the agriculture sector, modernizing our infrastructure, and that will help us to increase production, to mitigate flooding, and ensure that we help farmers to save their crops and things like that. So generally, I am very satisfied, and I'm thinking that in the new year we will see the trend continue, but the trend will continue in a bigger aspect, in a larger aspect, in getting more production.